The leader of the United Kingdom's Conservative Party, Kemi badenoc, topped the list of trends over the weekend in the wake of her interview with The Spectator, where she stated that she identifies more with the Yoruba ethnic group than the people from northern Nigeria. Her comments sparked a wave of criticism. Let me take that statement really quickly. Kemi badenoc was quoted as saying, "I find it interesting that everybody defines me as being Nigerian. I identify less with the country than with the specific identity that is Yoruba. That's what I really am. I have nothing in common with the people from the north of the country, the Boko Haram, where the Islamism is. Those were our ethnic enemies. And yet you end up being lumped in with those people." Kemi badenoc. I mean, this was quite disappointing, Rufai. Yeah, really disappointing. Let me take a comment. This is from Cletus, who wrote, "Statements like these are harmful and create unnecessary division. Saying I have nothing in common with people from the north is unfair and wrong. Nigerians, whether Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, or from any other group, are connected by a shared identity and the challenges we all face. Instead of dividing us, we should focus on what unites us as a nation. As the elections approach, politicians must avoid such language. Sadly, even some of our own politicians are guilty of making similar divisive statements during the campaigns. This is unacceptable. They should speak responsibly and focus on addressing issues like insecurity, poverty, and development, rather than promoting division or hatred. Leadership should unite us, not tear us apart." Dr. Abati, I know you've seen these comments. I mean, many people condemned Kemi badenoc with this statement. I mean, it is all in the wake of, the response from Vice President Kashim Shettima, who had actually told her you can remove Kemi from your name, telling her that Nigeria is the greatest country on earth. But we also know that Yoruba Nation activist Sunday Adeyemo, popularly known as Sunday Igboho, has called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to caution Vice President Kashim Shettima against further verbal attacks on Kemi badenoc. Your comment, Dr. Abati.
Okay, ethnic identity is one of those centrifugal points at the heart of the Nigerian question. Also throwing up the question about nationhood. Are we really a nation? Mm-hmm. There are Nigerian leaders who have even questioned the issue that we're just a geographical expression, as Chief Obafemi Awolowo said in the 1940s. In the constitutional conferences processes of the 1950s, identity, whether we should be together, was also an issue. And it was also eventually what led to the Civil War. So it's centrifugal, because it's always a problem. It doesn't bring us together when politicians exploit it. And some people say, well, we should look at centripetal forces that can bring us together. But ethnicity remains a very major problem in this country. And people, for primordial, emotional, or simply out of ignorance, capitalize on the ethnic divisions for their own purposes. Some intelligent, some mischievous, some difficult to understand. Now, having said that theoretical base, on Kemi badenoc's case, now there have been various opinions on this. I cite two examples, just to make it easier. Dr. Umado wrote a piece in which he was talking about the fallacy of identity. And his argument is that Kemi badenoc should not be saying wrong things about our Nigerian heritage. That as somebody who was a product of this society, she may have done well in the United Kingdom, but she should also respect the heritage that she comes from. In other words, she should not stay outside and be throwing stones at, a point of extraction. That's one view, and it's a popular view. But equally popular is the view expressed by Bishop Matthew Kuka in an article, I think, in the Leadership newspaper, in which he was saying that, look, we should perhaps be focusing more on the achievement of Kemi badenoc. What is our achievement? The first black leader of the Conservative Party, a party that is 190 years old. And, he said all of that in itself is not a main achievement. And it was that prompted Umado rejoinder. So you find people looking at it from two different angles. However, the Spectator article that you referred to, when I reviewed it, it seems to me that Kemi badenoc has a reputation for straight talking. I don't know how you define straight talking. In that same interview, they asked her what she takes for lunch. She says lunch is for wimps. And this generated a lot of controversy, even in England there, with Kemi Starmer attacking her and saying, no, lunch is not for wimps. And she said, oh, people who take lunch breaks, you know, they are weak people, and sandwiches, you know, that she doesn't eat soggy bread, that when she's going to the office, she goes with her. Okay, that caused controversy. It was in that same interview that she says, I have nothing to do with the North. These are people who are into Boko Haram and all of that. Well, you may say, straight talking along that line, you may not want to excuse it, but that's how she felt. And she said, you know, there are so many other things that she has said that are considered controversial. What we must realize at the end of the day is that Kemi badenoc has made her choice. She says in that same interview that her ambition is to serve Britain. Her ambition is to rebuild the Tory party. So she's not really interested in what goes on in Nigeria. And I'm sure that her ultimate ambition will be perhaps to emerge as the Prime Minister of Great Britain tomorrow. Well, we now know that if she emerges as Great Britain Prime Minister tomorrow, we will not be so enthusiastic to be saying our daughter is now Prime Minister of Great Britain.
That is a solid point, Dr. Bati. I mean, if she emerges as Prime Minister, though, what is she going to do at that point with this diplomatic row already festering between her and the Vice President Kashim Shettima? If you're attacking the Vice President, you might as well attack the President.
Sorry, I remember one thing. Sunday Igboho
yes,
was said to have issued a
statement.
I consider that statement illiterate because the matter between Kemi badenoc and Shettima is not a fight between North and South. Yeah. And Sunday Igboho was saying that in 2021, when his house was stormed, it was because he criticized the Buhari administration. It's not because he criticized Buhari administration. It was because they thought he was organizing the Yoruba region in an act of insurrection against the Nigerian state. That was the issue. So it's a false equivalent. The analogy is not correct to say that, oh, Kemi badenoc has said this, therefore, Tinubu should warn Senator Kashim Shettima and tell him to be careful not to talk against Kemi badenoc again. How ridiculous is that? The president, the vice president, the president is not the headmaster of the vice president. Well, that's why I think it's in fact the statement issued by Sunday Igboho that is more provocative. It's like pouring petrol on a matter that, you know, could just be overlooked.
All right. In another interview, Kemi shared a negative experience with the Nigerian police, comparing them to the British police. The conservative leader spoke with the Free Press, where she described the Nigerian police as thieves who stole her brother's watch and shoes. Let's take a look.
Do you trust the British police?
I do. But you know, remember my experience with the police in Nigeria was very negative. And coming to the UK, my first experience with the police was very positive. You know, the police in Nigeria would rob us. So when people say, oh, I had this bad experience with the police because I'm black and they're white, I was like, well, you know, I remember the police stole my brother's shoes and his watch.
His shoes?
Yeah, they took his shoes and his watch. It's a very poor country. So, you know, people do all sorts of things, and giving people a gun is just a license to intimidate. But that's not the bar we should use for British police. Obviously, it should be much higher. But my experience was so positive when I was burgled, for example. The police were there, very helpful. They eventually caught the person. This is 2004, so 20 years ago. The police did catch, they did catch criminals, and now we've given them too much to do, in my view. So the police are the first line of defense for everything. And I think that burden makes it a lot harder for them to actually do the basics. And that's another thing that we need to look at.
Well, Rufai, Kemi badenoc came under fire with a statement as well, because, I mean, they didn't even ask her about the Nigerian police. What was the need of highlighting the Nigerian police? Well, let me just bring some balance with, you know, with the criticism she faced with this tweet. This person wrote, Kemi badenoc's statement highlights the unfortunate reality of police misconduct and the struggles many face in Nigeria due to systemic issues. While her comment may feel harsh to some, it's important to use such remarks as a starting point for constructive dialogue about the pressing need for reform and accountability. Nigeria is rich in culture, resources, and potential, but corruption and mismanagement have left many disillusioned. It's not about labeling the country as poor, but addressing the deep-rooted challenges that led to such actions. True progress will come when these systems are overhauled and the people are empowered to demand better governance and justice. I mean, while this tweet is quite apt, we cannot say that the British police is not corrupt either. Ayo, before I come to you, though, still on this Kemi badenoc issue. Well, amid the backlash, users on social media pulled up a video of British-Nigerian boxer Anthony Joshua's Commonwealth Day speech back in 2020 when he addressed the royal family. The former heavyweight world champion, who spent part of his childhood in Nigeria, said that he is proud to be a Nigerian.
My name is Anthony Oluwafemi Olasheni Joshua, and like many of you here, I'm a child of the Commonwealth. I was born in Watford, and my heritage is Nigerian. I come from the Yoruba people, who are the largest, and some might say the loudest, ethnic group in all of Africa. I am proudly Nigerian, and I'm proudly British, and I join a long line, perhaps too long to count, of UK citizens of Commonwealth origin who've made enormous contributions to this great multicultural society of ours. Like me, so many children of the Commonwealth have two homes, two identities, two cultures, and two ways of viewing the world. Some even have more than two. These days, we hear so much about division and difference that some might be tempted to see that as a bad thing. But on the contrary, it's a beautiful thing, a thing to be celebrated and cherished, and a great source of peace and stability. I feel opportunity should be there for the taking, along with hard work, dedication, and perseverance, regardless of one's background. In the same way boxing gave me the opportunity and framework to become Olympic champion, Commonwealth champion, and now into heavyweight champion of the world. But I ask myself, what does the Commonwealth really mean? The second part of that word is key for me. A united common future could create opportunities for our Commonwealth cousins. So, here's to fish and chips and a goosey soup and pounded jam, to the UK and Nigeria, and to the children of the Commonwealth. Thank you very much for listening.
I mean, is it not the same Nigeria that Anthony Joshua grew up in? It's not the same similar heritage. I mean, was it the former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, that said, whenever you have a chance to say something good about your country?
Thank you. And I thank you for that, because I want to address people who are supporting what Kemi badenoc says, saying she's not saying the truth. It's good. Let her, especially, usually the opposition saying that let her put a lot of pressure on the government. What you don't know is that when she shapes narratives like this, when you go for a visa application, they're not going to ask you.
Oh, yes, sir.
Everything she says that is shaping the international community's view of Nigeria based on her experience and the leverage she has as leader of the opposition would affect the way that you as a Nigerian are being perceived. And that's why you should fight for your country.
Absolutely.
You might not like the way that the government is, but let me tell you something. It doesn't remove you the way that everybody sees you. So if they see one person as a thief, best believe that when you go for an application or you go and speak anywhere else, they're looking at you as a thief. And that's why a lot of people spend money to manage the image of their nations. It's not because nations are perfect. Like we said, if you look at the UK and people who live in the UK and experiences we've had, whether with the police or whether with the people, we won't come out and be speaking like this. But they never denigrate. And that's why I'm very ashamed when people are saying, oh, she's saying the truth. Keep on putting fire on them. It's a shame to this nation that no matter how much hate you have, whether for the government or for yourselves, you are happy that's your own heritage. You have only one nation. You have only one heritage. It is Nigeria. You cannot run away from it.
Right.
If they insult Nigeria, they insult you everywhere you go. And I'm so proud of Anthony Joshua. This is the kind of narrative that we should hear. Also, I hope he also reflects the kind of person and leader that Kemi would be.
Absolutely.
Divisive and willing to speak against and cause ethnic tensions in order to drive home her agenda.
Yeah.
There's no difference between her and Nigel Farage. The only difference is that she's black, he's white.
Yeah.
They are doing the same thing in principle, in terms of saying that we are better than you. I am better than you. That is
Well
what
said.
it is.
Well said, Ayo. Well said,
Yeah.
Ayo. Well, I hope Kemi Badenoc borrows a leaf from Anthony Joshua and, emulate statements like the one that he made at the Commonwealth Day. And I'll also like to reiterate what Vice President Kashim Shettima said. Nigeria is the greatest black nation on earth.